Imagine feeling like a puppet, your strings pulled by an unseen force. That was me, trapped in a vicious cycle of PMO addiction. Each day felt like a battle, a constant tug of war between my self-respect and this relentless compulsion. It was as if I was living under a cloud, a heavy fog that sapped my energy, blurred my focus, and left me feeling chronically unfulfilled. My relationships suffered. I was there, but not really present. Conversations were a blur. My connection with others dimmed by the haze of guilt and shame. I was sinking into an abyss of despair, my life spinning out of control. My mental health was in shambles. I was constantly anxious, always on edge. My self-esteem was at an all-time low. It was like living in a perpetual state of self-loathing and regret. I knew I needed to break free, but I didn't know how. That was until I stumbled upon NoFap. Day one was a declaration of war against my addiction. I deleted all triggers, but the real battle was just beginning. The first few days of my NoFap journey were nothing less than a roller coaster ride. The withdrawal symptoms were a constant reminder of the power my addiction held over me. Sleepless nights, restless days, and an overpowering urge to retreat to my old habits. It was as if an invisible hand was trying to pull me back into the abyss of despair, but I was ready for the fight. I armed myself with strategies to overcome these initial hurdles. I started meditating, reading self-help books, and exercising daily. These activities helped me rewire my brain and resist the temptation. Every day was a battle, every night a test of will. But the more I resisted, the stronger I became. Each passing day was a victory, a testament to my resolve. It was a brutal start, but I was determined to reclaim control over my life. As days turned into weeks, I began to notice changes. The fog in my mind started to clear. This journey, this transformation wasn't immediate. It was subtle, like the gentle change of seasons. But as the days turned into weeks, I could feel my mind slowly starting to regain its clarity. The world around me became sharper, more vibrant. I was no longer a mere observer, but an active participant in my own life. I began to notice my energy levels rising. I was no longer lethargic, no longer dragging myself through the day. Instead, I found myself leaping out of bed each morning, eager to seize the day. My productivity skyrocketed. Tasks that once seemed insurmountable were now accomplished with ease. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. There were days when the old habits tried to creep back in, days when the temptation was almost too much to bear. But whenever I felt myself slipping, I remembered why I started this journey. I remembered the promise I made to myself. I remembered the freedom I was fighting for. I learned to replace old habits with new ones. Instead of mindlessly scrolling through the internet, I took up reading. I started meditating. I began exercising regularly. I found joy in activities that once seemed mundane. I started to appreciate the simple pleasures of life. The warmth of the sun on my skin, the sound of birds chirping, the taste of freshly brewed coffee. I also discovered the power of community. I joined online forums and support groups. I found comfort in knowing that I was not alone, that there were others who were going through the same struggle. We shared our victories and our setbacks. We cheered each other on. We became each other's lifeline. As I look back now, I realize that this journey was not just about abstaining from PMO. It was about learning to respect myself. It was about understanding my worth. It was about reclaiming my life. It was not an easy journey, but every single day was a step towards freedom. 120 days later, I was a different person. I had clarity, peace, and a newfound sense of purpose. It's remarkable how the human mind recalibrates once it's freed from the shackles of addiction. After 120 days of NoFap, I could feel an inner transformation. My mind, once clouded with the fog of compulsion, was now a beacon of lucidity. It was like waking up from a long, disturbing dream, only to find the world more vibrant and full of potential than I had ever perceived it to be. The peace was almost palpable. It wasn't just the absence of guilt and shame that came from surrendering to my addiction. It was a profound sense of calmness that filled the void. I was no longer at war with myself, constantly battling urges that seemed invincible. I had made peace with my inner demons, and it was a tranquility that I had long forgotten. But the transformation didn't stop there. My relationships started to bloom in ways I never thought they could. I found myself genuinely interested in others. attentive to their words, their emotions. I became a better listener, a more compassionate friend. I was no longer self-absorbed, trapped in my own world of addiction. I was present, truly present, for the people who mattered to me. My overall quality of life improved significantly. I was more productive, more focused, and more content. I started to take care of my physical health, hitting the gym regularly, eating healthier. I picked up new hobbies, read more books, explored new interests. I was no longer just existing. I was living, thriving, growing. The transformation was not just about abstaining from PMO, it was about rediscovering myself, reclaiming my life from the clutches of addiction. It was about realizing that I was more than my urges, that I had the power to change, to choose a different path. My life was no longer dominated by my addiction. I was finally free. Freedom from PMO was not just about quitting a bad habit. It was about reclaiming my life. And as I stand here, 120 days into my journey of sobriety, I see the world through a new lens, a lens untainted by the fog of addiction. In this new chapter, I've embraced a life of clarity, peace, and purpose. My mind, once a battlefield of urges and compulsions, is now a sanctuary of tranquility. The brain fog lifted, and in its place, clarity emerged. I've rediscovered my ability to focus, to delve deep into tasks without the constant pull of my former vice. My relationships too have transformed. I've learned to connect on a deeper, more meaningful level. I no longer seek the artificial comfort of pixels on a screen. Instead, I seek the warmth of genuine human connection. I've become more empathetic, more understanding, and more present in my interactions with others. My energy levels have skyrocketed. I wake up each morning with a sense of purpose, a zest for life that was absent during my days of addiction. I've started taking care of my physical health, hitting the gym, and adopting a healthier diet. The lethargy that once held me hostage has been replaced by a newfound vitality. I've also noticed a boost in my self-confidence. No longer am I weighed down by the guilt and shame of my addiction. I walk with my head held high, proud of the progress I've made and the person I've become. And perhaps most importantly, I've opened up to new opportunities. I've discovered passions I didn't know I had, explored avenues I'd previously ignored. I've learned that life, real life, extends far beyond the confines of a screen. NoFap was not the end, but the beginning of a new chapter in my life. A chapter of clarity, peace, and purpose. A chapter where I am not defined by my past, but by the choices I make in the present. A chapter where I am the author of my own story,